Should all Americans be watching the unfolding revolution in Iran? Many experts say if it succeeds, it could change the world. Kiyah Willis brings you the latest update.
The Iranian Revolution is probably the most influential global event since the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the media isn't really covering it because you are easier to control if you are ignorant. They don't want you to know that the Islamic Revolution of 1979 wasn't led by open calls for theocracy. It was led by promises of free buses, free electricity, redistribution of wealth, as well as a return to traditional and religious influence over the government. They don't want you to know that Marxists, nationalists, and traditionalists all worked together to uplift the regime despite their differences on the surface because they all had one thing in common: they all hated the West. They don't want you to know that as soon as the dictatorship began, the first things to go were free speech, free press, and freedom of expression. They don't want you to know that many of the people who supported the Islamic regime gaining power were some of the first people to be rounded up and executed. They don't want you to know about the regret, oppression, and poverty Iranians have faced for the past almost 50 years. They don't want you to know that Iranians are fighting now for the freedom that so many people in the US take for granted, because many of the people who are silent want the US to be more like Iran, and they are succeeding. In the US, we have seen a growing coalition of nationalists, socialists, and jihadists who on the surface seem like they have nothing in common. But they all come together to demonize our allies, smear the Constitution, and poison American culture because they all hate the West. And they would rather our country turn into a third world dystopia than to allow people to live freely in a way that hurts their feelings. So they hide behind false promises and whitewash global atrocities because they don't want people to know what's happening, and by the time people realize what they've gotten themselves into, it will be too late. And I'm not saying that America is going to turn into an Islamic theocracy, but we are certainly heading down a path that is leading towards a similar type of authoritarianism, or potentially something even worse. And we cannot let that happen. So keep all eyes on Iran, because this revolution can change the world. It would free the people of Iran, it would decapitate financing for global terrorism, and it would demoralize enemies of the West. So we need to send all of the support that we can to these freedom fighters and let them know that those of us who support humanity are on their side.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's show. See you in the next one. Bye bye.